the smartest giant in town. George the Giant was the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. But one day, George noticed a shop. It was full of smart clothes. So he bought smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. Now I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffling sadly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and cold. I wish I had a long warm scarf." "Cheer up," said George. And he took off his stripy tie. It didn't match with my socks anyway, he said, as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down. I am the smartest giant in town. George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." "Cheer up," said George. And he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, and tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. "Thank you," said the goat, and George strode on the road singing to himself. "My tie's a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look me up and down. I am the smartest giant in town." George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" asked George. "It's our house," squeaked the mother goat. "It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish I had a nice new house." "Cheer up," said George, and he took one of his shiny shoes. It was giving me blisters anyway," he said, and as the mouse and her baby scrambled inside, the shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they squeaked. George was hopping along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself, "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a white little mouse. But look me up and down. I am the smartest giant in town." George came to a campsite. Beside stood a fox who was crying. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sleeping bag, said the fox. I dropped it in the puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag. Cheer up, said George. And he took one of his socks with diamonds up the sides. It was tickling my toes anyway, he said. As the fox snuggled into it, it made a very fine sleeping bag. Thank you, said the fox. George hopped on, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat that sails are good. My shoe is a house for a white little mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look me up and down. I am the smartest giant in town. George came back. George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my bog, said the dog. I need to go across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path. Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his smart new belt. It was squashing my tummy anyway, he said, and laid it over the bog. It made an excellent path. Thank you, said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on singing. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat has a sail for a goat. My shoe is a mouth for a white little mouse. One of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but my trousers were falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town. Suddenly, George felt sad and shivery and not that all smart. He stood on one foot though, and he thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes, he decided, and turned around and hopped all the way back to the shop. When he got there, it was closed. Oh no, cried George as he sank down onto the doorstep, and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals, and he had met his way home. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a big bag with something familiar poking out of the top. George took a closer look. My gown, he yelled. My dear old gown and sandals. George put them on. He felt wonderfully comfortable. I am the coziest giant in town, he cried, and he danced back home along the road. Outside the front door stood all the animals he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they said. Open it. George untied the ribbon It was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. "Look inside the card, George," said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Inside it said, "Your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on a sail for a goat. Your shoes a house for a white little mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped the dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with the sandals and gown. One of the kindest giant in town." The end.